There's a good chance you live in a city. Most of us do. They're these incredible engines of our economy, our culture. But here's the thing. These bustling hubs, they are on the absolute front line of a changing climate, facing risks that threaten pretty much everything: our homes, our health, our futures. So the really big question is, what can our cities do to fight back? Today, we are breaking down the playbook for building real urban resilience.
And let's be really clear about this. This isn't some problem for our grandkids to solve. It's happening right now. For the millions upon millions of people living in coastal cities, the danger is coming from two directions. You've got the seas that are slowly but surely rising, while at the same time storm surges are getting way more intense. It's this devastating 1-2 punch that puts lives and entire economies at risk today.
So, to even begin to tackle this, we first have to understand who is most at risk. Because look, while climate change is a global problem, its impacts are felt very locally. And as we're about to see, it's not hitting everyone equally. Some communities right inside our cities are carrying a much heavier burden than others. Take a look at this number, 1 billion. Just let that sink in for a second. That is how many people around the world live in what are called informal settlements, or slums. We're talking about nearly a third of the world's entire urban population, and they're often living on the most dangerous land you can imagine. We're talking steep, unstable slopes, floodplains, places nobody else wants. Okay, so what this slide does so well is connect the dots. The everyday conditions of poverty, they act like a massive amplifier for climate impacts. Think about it. If you don't have secure ownership of your land, a storm isn't just about a damaged roof. It can literally wash away your entire life. If there's no sanitation system, a flood isn't just wet feet. It means diseases like cholera can spread like wildfire. These aren't just bad conditions, they're risk multipliers. And this is what it looks like when those risks become a horrific reality. This quote, it's not a statistic, it's an absolute tragedy. It shows you exactly what happens when an extreme weather event slams into a community that's already vulnerable. It's just a gut punch of a reminder that this urban climate challenge is, at its heart, a human challenge.
So you see all this, and you have to ask, what can cities possibly do? Well, the answer isn't about giving up, it's about getting smart. It's about getting proactive. It means we have to shift our entire mindset from just reacting to disasters after they happen to actually preparing for them before they strike. This is the whole idea behind what experts call climate change adaptation.
So let's be super clear on what we mean by adaptation. It's not just cleaning up after the storm. It's a forward-looking game plan. It's the process of making smart adjustments to our policies, our buildings, even our daily behaviors, so we can handle the negative impacts of climate change that are already baked in.
And this brings us to a really crucial distinction, the difference between adaptation and that other word we hear all the time, mitigation. So think of it like this. Mitigation is about trying to avoid the unmanageable. It's cutting greenhouse gas emissions to slow down climate change itself. It's like turning off an overflowing faucet. Adaptation, on the other hand, is about managing the unavoidable. It's mopping up the water that's already on the floor. You can't choose. You have to do both. They're two sides of the exact same coin.
Okay, so how do cities actually do this? Well, the good news is, building a resilient city isn't just random guesswork. There's a proven playbook, a strategic approach that any city, anywhere, can start following to systematically chip away at its vulnerabilities.
And it really boils down to these 3 key steps. First up, you have to assess your risks. Every single city is different. What's a threat in Miami is not the same as in Phoenix. Second, you collaborate. This is not a job for the mayor's office alone. And third, you integrate. You weave adaptation into everything the city already does, from how it builds roads to how it runs its health department. It has to become part of the city's DNA.
And this slide, it shows you exactly what that collaboration looks like. No single group has all the answers. You absolutely need scientists bringing the data, community groups who know what's happening on the ground, the private sector to drive investment, and all levels of government pulling in the same direction. It's a true all-hands-on-deck situation. All right, so that's the theory. But what does this stuff actually look like when the rubber hits the road? Let's dive into some real-world examples, and you'll see it ranges from massive engineering projects to really elegant green solutions.
So on one end of the spectrum, you have what are called hard adaptations. We're talking about things like the massive Thames Barrier you see here, or seawalls, or levees. These are huge feats of engineering designed to physically shield billions of dollars in property and, more importantly, millions of people from things like catastrophic storm surges.
But it's not all about concrete and steel. There's a totally different way to think about this.
Instead of just building walls, cities like London are weaving in green infrastructure, networks of parks, green roofs, wetlands. These nature-based solutions are amazing. They help manage stormwater, they cool the city down, fighting that urban heat island effect, where all the asphalt and concrete basically turns the city into an oven. But they also clean the air and just make the city a way better place to live. That's why they're called no-regret solutions. They're a good idea, climate change or not.
And that brings us to a super important point. Adaptation doesn't have to break the bank. There is a whole spectrum of actions a city can take. Yeah, sure, some are big-ticket items, like moving an entire power plant out of a floodplain. But there are also medium-cost things, like incentives for green buildings. And then there are incredibly low-cost, common-sense ideas, like, hey, let's just paint the roofs of our buses white to reflect heat. The point is, there are options for every single budget.
And this leads us to the final and honestly probably the most exciting idea in all of this. What if we stop thinking about adaptation as just a defensive chore? What if we start seeing it as a strategic opportunity, a chance to fundamentally rebuild our cities for the better?
The key is this fantastic concept called co-benefits. Co-benefits are all the awesome side effects you get from smart adaptation projects. It's when you design something to solve multiple problems at once. You don't just get a return on your investment, you get this huge bonus.
I mean, just think about it. That well-designed park we talked about doesn't just reduce flood risk, it also creates jobs, it makes the air cleaner, which improves public health, it protects the most vulnerable neighborhoods, it can actually reduce emissions, and yeah, it just makes the city a more beautiful, desirable place to live. See? Investing in resilience is a direct investment in a richer, healthier, and fairer future for everybody.
So, in the end, adapting our cities isn't some burden we have to carry. It's a choice. It's a choice about the kind of future we actually want to build. It's about shifting our perspective, from seeing adaptation as a cost on a spreadsheet to seeing it for what it is, a down payment on a thriving, resilient future.